Good evening, and we are so excited to have all of you as my heroes today on Be Extraordinary. This show is so different, and it's different because we know that we need you to be involved, and we know that you are extraordinary. And as the song said, you all are heroes in your all respective ways. This show is called Be Extraordinary, and it is sponsored by Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey. As they always say, they are there when you need them most. They focus on mental and dental and Medicare and Medicaid, and they have been heroes throughout this entire pandemic. This evening, we have an amazing guest on the show, but before I go to our guest, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I am Joetta, your four-time Olympian, motivational speaker, author, philanthropic individual, and someone that cares about the community. I have been so passionate about what I've been doing, and I have a partner as well. I always say teamwork makes the dream work, and my partner and my co-host is Tyrone Johnson. Together, we have had over 50 years of working in the field of sports and nutrition and fitness and mental, but Tyrone brings a wealth of experience as a retired firefighter for over 25 years from the Newark, New Jersey Fire Department. He's also a first responder. He's a mental and stress consultant and also a high school renowned track and field coach. So Tyrone, welcome this evening. It's good to be back in the studio.
Let me take a breath, because you gave me all my accolades. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's nice to see everybody out there today. And thank you for showing up at this 5:30 hour. I know a lot of y'all are just getting out of work, picking up kids, getting ready to cook and things like that. So right now, we just want you to sit back and enjoy this quick 1 hour about, the pandemic. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you.
And Tyrone, he is very calm and collected, but he was so excited to be inside the studio. As you know, with the pandemic, we couldn't do the show, and we decided to wait until we could be together in studio to bring you this show. So today's show is special, and we are so excited to have all of you heroes here. Our next person that I'm going to talk about will be Iris Novas Cooney. She is from Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Iris. Iris is the Department of Member Advocacy, Community Outreach. She's a Transformation Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey. Iris initiated her clinical career in healthcare as a registered dietitian and hygienist in 1988. She has a wealth of knowledge. She has completed her master's degree as well in 2011 in healthcare administration, community health science. Iris has continued to serve as a clinician, and she has pursued her experience in public health care, research at the NYU School of Medicine, and in 2015, she joined Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Outreach Transformation Team. Her current role as the Manager of Community Health and Education, she is to focus on health education, development, and health promotion initiatives. And it's just an amazing person that she is. And we are so very happy to have Iris Novas Cooney with us this evening. Iris, welcome to the show. Oh, there you are. We have to unmute you. Hold on. Are you trying to do that? Wait 1 second while we do. There you go.
Welcome. Let me turn off my laptop so we can get started.
Okay.
No more feedback, right?
Yeah, no more feedback. That's so much better. Thank you very much. Great. And as I introduced you, I know there's a little bit more that you have to say. So if you don't mind, just tell me a little bit more about your background and your connection and what you're doing in your new role. It's always wonderful to get a promotion and you got a big promotion, new title, and I'm sure you have a lot of new assignments that you have to do. So just give us a little bit more information about what you have done and what you plan to do at Horizon.
Oh, sure, sure. And thank you so much for having me. We are completely honored, and it's a privilege to serve alongside you. You guys are amazing and do incredibly important work to service all of New Jersey, and we appreciate your leadership carrying us through. So thank you for having us. To answer your question, so I started at Horizon in 2015, and prior to that, I was a clinician for about 15 years as a registered dental hygienist. And within that scope of work, there's a great deal of nutrition focus and chronic illness management involved with that. So with my master's in healthcare administration, my chief focus was on community health science. So which brought me to research in NYU and expanded my focus on community health education initiatives. Within Horizon, I fell into an incredible department, the advocacy and outreach team, that focused their work on, there's two levels or two tiers within our department. One is providing the knowledge content around benefits navigation, specifically through Medicaid or NJ Family Care. And the other arm is the community health education team, which focuses our work on community health education around chronic illness and prevention health.
Wow, thank you very much for explaining all of that. And at this program, we always say you tune in to hear conversations for people who have a wealth of knowledge, who are leaders and influencers. And so that is what you are, and that's what Horizon, they are as well. They are leaders and influencers in New Jersey. So what we're going to do is we always do, audience, we break this up into 3 segments. The first segment will be?
The shutdown. Then we're going to go back into stress, and then the solutions.
And when we do that, we'll also have some questions to ask. And all we want you to do is either raise your hand or put your question in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get those questions over to Iris for her to lend you her expertise. So we're going to start with the pandemic and the shutdown. I talk about my shutdown. I was shut down as a motivational speaker. I could not go on the road to do my events. I could not go into programs to perform my school programs. So I was shut down from a business perspective, but I could not shut down on myself mentally. And even though my mother transitioned in March of 2020, I wanted to shut down, but I could not shut down. So the shutdown for me was real on 2 fronts. It was real from a business perspective, and it was real from a family perspective. So Tyrone?
So same. I went through pretty much the same with Joetta, because I was there during the time my mom was, going through her situation, and our dad at the same time. And my father right now is going through a similar situation. So not being able to travel to see him in Florida for almost a year and a half, and, to deal with, not being able to go to the hospital at times to see loved ones, that was kind of hard. But now, with things easing up a little bit, things are coming back to normal.
Good. So Iris, how did Horizon respond to the initial pandemic crisis?
Well, thank you both for sharing your personal stories. So starting in a context that we collectively, not only in New Jersey, but the United States and all around the world, have been impacted or traumatized, really, at some capacity because of the pandemic, right? So starting at that point of reference, initially, the influx of the shutdown and people losing their jobs where they thought that could never happen. I mean, March of 2020 was just a collective whirlwind, right? So people losing their job or being let go, not knowing where their source of income is going to come in, And then the excessive amount of people getting sick from this novel virus, right? And even local doctors had to close their offices. There were only certain facilities like hospitals and health clinics that were able to open, right, safely, but also the influx of people that needed care was enormous, right, during the month of March and April. So what we did initially, since all of our community partners, faith-based community partners, school-based community partners, local, we connected with them and asked them, what do you need in order to continue to serve, right? In a modified way.
Yeah.
Many doctors were not prepared. I mean, there was telemedicine prior to the pandemic, but it wasn't readily used, right? And people didn't normally, like, if you go to the doctor, you physically go to your appointments, right? So the thought of virtual visits or telemedicine was foreign, right? So it's making it available, the technology, for people to get the care that they needed, especially during the pandemic. That was one piece. And then the second piece was making sure that the Medicaid literacy component was widely distributed, right? Because now folks who lost their employment, it's a dramatic income change. And now they are eligible or likely eligible for Medicaid. Right. And many folks never even thought that that's a resource that they could use. So we really were committed to, one, making sure that community partners had the resources that they need to stay operational, right? Whether that be with technology, with virtual platforms, with PPE, anything and everything. And you have to remember too, there was no COVID testing sites, that took time. There wasn't even the availability for testing, right? Which is incredibly scary when you think back on it. But that all impact with the huge surge of people who were infected. And then doctors and medical professionals not knowing full well how to combat this virus, right? Because it was so insidious. It really impacted the whole gamut of people, right? Whether elderly and, complex medically involved, to younger people who were completely healthy and then ended up in the intensive care unit, right? In a hospital.
And so I'm gonna stop you on that point, because I'm gonna go to this. We're talking about being a hero. And when you talk about being heroes, you had to really be a hero for the community. And you had to be willing to respond to the community during the pandemic initial response. So besides the Medicaid portion, was there anything else that you did for the community to respond and to be a hero of hope? A lot of times we look at heroes and you go, what are you a hero for? At Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, you were a hero for hope, especially at the very initial point of the pandemic.
Thank you so much for that. So again, those were our main focuses, but we also serve as advocates for our members, right? And for the community needs. So if a community partner encountered a family, perhaps they were sick and, parents were hospitalized, and then children were unattended to, and they needed to be connected to services immediately, they would connect with us, and then we would serve as that gateway to get them the resources that they needed. So again, it runs the gamut, because then we had a lot of outreach on food insecurity, right? They needed resources around food. They needed resources around connecting to a medical doctor, because they weren't sick enough to go to the hospital, but they needed to be seen by a doctor. How do they do that if the doctor's not prepared with a telehealth or a virtual appointment, right? So connecting them to local community health centers to get the care that they need. It was so varied, right? Or just simple PPE for essential workers that didn't have masks readily available to them, right? So it really was complex. 2020 was different, to say the least, but I remain that we are a group of people really devoted to and committed to connecting with our community partners and the larger New Jersey community to get them the resources that they need.
And
Their
right now,
health is our health.
we got to take a break because it's time for our questions. These segments go so quickly, Iris, and you have a wealth of knowledge, and we're going to get to that pretty backdrop that you have, and you will explain that to the audience. But for now, we want to have some questions. So if you have a question, there are two ways to get your question to Iris. One, you can raise your hand, or two, you could type in your question in the chat. So if anyone has a question at this point, with what she just talked about, the shutdown and Medicaid and different options that you have. And remember, even though she is from New Jersey, this healthcare is rapid throughout the entire country. So she has a bunch of information. She can talk to anyone about any topic that she talked about, not just from New Jersey. So do we have a question from anybody in the chat? Because if we don't, we're going to move on. Okay, I don't see any questions right now. So we're going to move on to our next phase. And our next phase is stress. And as a motivational speaker, I'm always trying to help people work with stress. And believe it or not, even though I think I have it all down, I do go through stress. And Tyrone always tells me to relax and take it down. But when you don't know if you're coming or going, it's very hard to take it down. So I always want to have we have our vitamins that we talk about during the time of stress. We have our vitamin G, which is God, our vitamin A, which is an attitude. Our vitamin M is for motivation, and our vitamin E is for exercise. So that is what I kind of worked on, and I stole that from Tyrone. But those are the vitamins that I take during the stress component. Do you want to talk about stress before we ask Iris the questions?
Yeah, I just want to let the public know and people out there in the world that the things that I was used to doing as a firefighter, we had to work in controlled chaos. So a lot of times when the building is falling down and people are screaming and yelling, because I'm a first responder and a protector, I had to put that aside and go straight towards danger and help people. So with the situation with the COVID, I came up with some different things, and it's the time. It was time for crisis management. I had to do management before the crisis started. So by me having COVID last December, the things that I started to do was work out. And everybody was doing some crazy things. They was boiling lemons, boiling orange pills, taking turmeric and different things. So I did some of everything, but I wanted to get my body ready. So when COVID hit me, I was prepared for that. So a lot of times when we go through a situation that's dangerous or stressful or almost life-ending, we have to go into a different type of mode. So I went into survival mode. So I just want to see what my survival mode was. That was my survival mode. And that says that, I'm reading it backwards, the state or fact of continuing to live or exist, typically in spite of an accident, ordeal, or difficult circumstances. So when I had these things in my mind, I had to go to survival mode. So I just want you to know that when the stress comes, it's gonna come. I don't care if it's a stress because you're driving, all of a sudden your car gets a flat, stressful. You're going to work, all of a sudden traffic builds up, stressful. You're sitting here with this pretty young lady right here, and I'm under the lights and I'm speaking, not stressful. So survival mode for us and stress is what we have to deal with it. Learn how to deal with it, take a deep breath. Everybody just go in and breathe out and then come up with a solution.
Okay. So Iris, you heard how we dealt with it. At Horizon, how are you dealing with the stress? What are some of the barriers to achieving better health or access to healthcare that can come across the country? We have to unmute you, Mike. There you go.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Okay, great. So many folks experience multidimensional fight or flight experience, right? So during the initial pandemic, they were fearing of being exposed, right? Of getting COVID, this novel virus. Fear of needing medical services and not having the healthcare coverage to cover that expense. Healthcare is very expensive if you don't have insurance, right? And then the multi-layer of, I don't have enough PPE. How am I gonna accommodate for childcare? I'm not going to make enough money for basic human needs, right? So many complex issues that many of us experience, in addition to perhaps having a sick loved one or caring for someone from a distance because they couldn't see them in the hospital. So what we did was, one, we have to pause. Everyone is experiencing this together. And there are no circumstances where there is not an opportunity for us to grow and collectively work together for humanity's betterment, right? Empowerment, right? So for as awful as the pandemic has been, and how many, like the level of loss that we've experienced, this is still an opportunity to make it right with humanity. Right. So that's one. Two is that disease does not stop because of COVID-19. It doesn't take a back seat, right? They were still people that had heart attacks, strokes, right. Their diabetes wasn't managed. They had asthma, they had allergies. They may have needed cancer treatment or cancer screenings, right? All of this did not say, well, we're gonna take a pause right now because, COVID-19 is, it just made it all the more difficult to get these services done. So once things were in place for people to connect with their doctors, is having that conversation of how to re-engage your doctor in a safe way, right? So that your exposure, risk to exposure was reduced, but also getting the care that you need, getting that mammogram, getting that colonoscopy, getting your prostate checked. So all of these things collectively were important to ensure that people got the services that they needed safely.
And that's a good point about being safe. And a lot of us are still trying to reconnect with our doctors. We do a lot of things online and virtually, and we have some gadgets that we always want to talk about that are so essential to have in your home. And however, there's nothing like getting a up close and personal check. But until you can get back to your doctors, we suggest that you have some of these items at home that can help you in the transition.
Okay, oximeter, very good. Just test your oxygen levels and your body temperature, and then it's pretty good. Then we go to, reliable. Check your body temperature. Okay, right now mine is 97.7. And then we go to take your blood pressure. Okay, simple machines. You get it from Walgreens, Target, and it's just an on button. You put it on your wrist and you press on. That's it. And you sit there comfortable. A lot of times I like to put my arm elevated next to my heart, not laying down. And it reads out. After a couple of seconds, it'll read out and tell you exactly what your blood pressure is. So with these three different tools, it helped me get through COVID, because once they let me get out the hospital, it was up to me to figure out what my body was doing. Okay, so like I said, these three different tools are easily, not expensive. So, just go out and get it that way. If you don't have time to go to the hospital, or even if you're not feeling well, short of breath, feeling like you're about to faint or different things, you'll know what's going on before you even get to the hospital.
And Iris, we're going to open it up for questions, because I think this is a very important area right now, which is how do you reconnect to your doctor? So we're going to open this up for questions. We're going to either have you raise your hand or put your questions in the chat. But in the meantime, Iris, could you please explain to us how we are to reconnect with our doctors, and then we're going to ask some of these questions?
Thank you for posing that question. And Tyrone, thanks for sharing those tools. Those are really important tools that we can use. But I just want to emphasize that these are tools that we use in addition to the guidance and the plan that you develop with your doctor, right? Because your doctor develops a plan of care specific for you. Right. So when you do check your blood pressure, that you know exactly what numbers to look for, right? And identify, I need to contact my doctor because something's changed, or I'm doing great. Let me make a note of that to see how long I've been managing my blood pressure, right? Or, how my oxygen levels are. All of these resources that you use at home really depend on the plan that you as a patient make with your doctors or your healthcare team, right? So that you know what your healthy numbers are, because that number is not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions.
Okay, who is this? Let me see where. Yvette Alvarez says she wants to put her on, or do you want me to read the question?
You can read it.
Okay, it's moving fast. Okay.
Oh, you want to click on
what we can deal with the daily stresses of family? What can we do to deal with the daily stresses of family, work, and home schooling?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you. Thank you for posing that question, Yvette. So many families had to transition and accommodate for childcare, or work from home and manage their children's schooling academically. One of the things that I tend to suggest is that schools have a plethora of resources, and particularly during the pandemic, they adjusted to the needs of the individual needs by family. There have been a lot of leeway, and teachers and principals and child study team, guidance counselors, nurses, they've all provided resources and accommodations in order to meet the needs of that family as they are. So leverage them. Always circle back with that plan with the school themselves so that they can work with you, because many families experience a variety. It wasn't just the transition. Right. Many families experienced COVID themselves. People were sick in and out of the hospital, and mostly adults caring for the children. Right. So again, it's using that resource of the school and connecting with them, because if they don't know that there's a problem, they can't help you. Right.
And they have to be educated, and you have to reach out. And sometimes you don't know how to reach out. So that's why it's important that you told them to reach out to the schools so they do know what's going on. We have another question.
Yes. Let me move up. So it's so tiny. Okay. We got Cheryl Norman. She wants to know, how did Horizon train the staff to respond to members' questions? This was such an unexpected pandemic, which took them out of the room or their norm.
Oh, yeah. I think we were, I'm sorry, what was the person's name again?
Cheryl Norman.
Ms. Norman, thank you for posing that question. I think we all were jarred, right? Especially in the very beginning of the pandemic. And since then, the information that has been disseminated has changed constantly, right? So keeping the level of communication for us was to remain clear, right? A consistent message of, right now we need to focus on the public health message of, masking, social distancing, washing of hands, ensuring that you only go at the time, that you only go out when it's necessary. But now we've transitioned in getting that messaging out of proper vaccination resource, right? So people can make informed decisions for themselves, right? No one's there to judge, but we want to make sure that you have the right and proper evidence-based information so that you can then talk to your doctor and decide for yourself what is best, right? We don't want to.
when you talked about having information and being informed. So we have some information for you to contact Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey. So we're going to put a slide up for you to contact them. We all know the website, horizonblue.com, but there are other ways for you to stay connected. So Iris, if you could speak quickly to each point so people can know what they're going to do when they reach these different resources.
Sure. So everyone can always go to our website, horizonnjhealth.com, for a variety of different information around our benefits, whether that's the Medicaid benefits, the SNP, which is a combination of Medicare and Medicaid, or the MLTSS, which is a specialized program for medically complex members. You could always email us at hnjhanswers@horizonnjhealth.com. You can pose questions at that email and they will respond to you. Visit us at our social media pages, either Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey or on Twitter at Horizon BCBSNJ, or you can call or email me. My information is there on the screen. You could always email me your questions or give me a call, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And we have a couple more questions. For some reason, Iris, this seems to be a topic of discussion, and we have a plethora of questions. So Tyrone is going to select someone else to ask a question. And as Horizon said, that they're here when you need them most. So I'm glad that you're here so you can be part of this conversation to ask these wonderful questions.
Okay, Adrian, are you up?
I am.
Thank you.
Oh, you can ask your question.
Okay, we all went into survival mode because we had no other choice.
Yes.
But once we were in the middle of the pandemic and we were learning a lot about how to survive, you guys have touched on the stress, you guys have touched on family issues, but what are other greater lessons that we've learned that can help us, for the remainder of our lives with our families and also dealing with stress?
That was a great question.
That's a really great question. Thank you, Mr.
Iris handle that one, but I'm gonna tag on the back, Iris, because this, I got excited as a motivational speaker. I'm ready to go. So I'll let Iris initially to tackle that question, and then I'll come on the back end.
Sure. So from a public health perspective, and as a person that provides services specifically to vulnerable populations, I think that the larger lesson here is that inequities exist at every level, right? And that those inequities really do need to be addressed in order for us to achieve everyone's best health, right? So we are all collectively responsible for ensuring that there is equity, or especially health equity, as doctors, nurses, educators, community health workers, social workers, anyone within the healthcare professional providing medical services. Okay. We're responsible for ensuring that every patient gets optimal care, right? And that includes equity, right? So I think that's a larger lesson. And once that playing field is leveled off, I think we will see substantial improvement across the board with overall health, right? So I think the lesson here is to look at ourselves as a society, right? And address those inequities, food insecurity, housing insecurities, job training, things of that nature, right? So that, the next public health crisis, which will likely, we're not completely absolved of it, that we can be ready and respond better so that we don't see that staggering disparity between the haves and the have-nots and how a pandemic can negatively impact them.
Yes. And that's thank you for explaining that. I just want to add to that. It's kind of, when I look at what you can use and what we learned out of this, is that it's like a flower. And then you plant something and someone may think that flower is dead, and really it's not dead, it's just waiting to bloom. So I think during the pandemic, things were dormant and now it's time to bloom. And I want everyone to bloom into hope. And I love acronyms. So hope, the H is for being helpful, The O is for being optimistic, the P is for being patient, and the E is for having empathy. And I think that if you can remember to hope, you will be a hero of your life and a hero to others. And I think that that is a lesson that was learned during the pandemic. So thank you, Adrian, for asking that wonderful question, and for Iris for explaining it as well. Did you want to add something to that, Tyrone?
No, I just want to piggyback off of Joetta, is that right now we're still in the pandemic. It's not over yet. You know, it's things that are still continuing happening with us as a community, as a family, as a nation. Because right now, I'm in public safety right now. So every week I pass out PPE, and that's personal protective equipment. So to do a mask and gloves and a shield, or, you know, the alcohol sanitizer, I'm bagging those things up, 1,200 a week, to give out to, you know, the police department, the Newark Police Department. Now, with that being said, the last 8 months I've done food drives, and we use JFK and different places where we passed out so many bags of food and fresh foods and fruits and milk and perishables and clothes at the same time. So right now, people are still trying to come out of this because they lost so much money, time. People lost their homes. Kids that went to a certain school don't want to go back to that school. Is that were wanting to go to college, they opted out for traveling. So a lot of things that we're going through, I just want people to realize that it's going to get better, but we have to just make our mind up to do what we have to do. So that's why I brought up that survival mode.
And I think about talking about survival, we have been surviving, and these segments go really fast. So I thank everyone for being part and still staying around. And I know Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield of New Jersey is excited that you're still here. And as Tyrone mentioned, he was very sick, and every day above ground is a good day. So the fact that he's still here, and many of you have had loved ones that have transitioned on, so we send our condolences out for you on that note. But we're also thankful that the ones that did make it through and that they do have hope. And so our next segment would be solutions. We talk about be extraordinary. You have ordinary people and you have extraordinary people. And extraordinary people fly high with eagles. And so it's difficult to get up there, but once you start flying high, there's no need to come back down. So you are extraordinary. And we're going to give you some solutions that get you to flying up and believing more in yourself and getting healthy and making sure that you're talking to the different healthcare representatives that you need to help you through everything. So Iris, this question for you is a solution question. What is Horizon's focus and commitment to their members and large New Jersey communities during these trying times?
So we at Horizon Blue Cross and Blue Shield are committed to empowering our members achieve their best health. And that's at our absolute core. I am really privileged to work with a variety of colleagues that are very much committed to ensuring that they are providing optimal services and addressing those needs, because we know that that will help ensure and push that member closer to their best health, right? So one of the things that I wanted to highlight as part of the solutions is the leveraging of local resources. So one, in order to move through difficult, trying times, we have to focus on self-care, right? We need to focus on ourselves, fuel ourselves in order to be the best version of ourselves out into the world, right? But that is not linear. It's not one specific thing. It's a multitude of different things, right? So from your diet, exercise, sleep hygiene, your mental hygiene, things that bring you joy in like the smaller things. But and around health, that also means doing uncomfortable things like going to your doctor, right? Going to the dentist, getting your mammograms, right? getting a prostate check, like all of these things. It's not like we're skipping to go get them, but we know that that's part of keeping us healthy, right? I want to live my healthiest, best life. This is how I do it. But that also includes mental health, right? So mental fitness is also incredibly important, but because we don't like you can't physically see the disease in another human being, like for example a diabetic or someone that, let's say, broke their arm. You can physically see how that disease impacts, but many folks who are that fall into needing behavioral and mental health assistance get stigmatized. So we need to also include that as part of our self-care, right? We need to be mentally fit in order for our physical self to thrive as well. And then focusing on how to get our emotional well-being, in check too. So tapping into those things that bring us joy at a smaller level, right? So because we were initially in that shutdown, we were minimizing how we engage with others. We weren't gathering, things of that nature, really forced us to kind of look inward and say, what are those things that, I'm like, I need to fulfill myself other than hanging out with my friends or like seeing my parents, or, I need to do other things. So one of the things that I like to share with folks is that we can find joy and fulfillment in like the small pleasures, right? So for example, using your senses, right, to kind of quiet the mind, just slow it down, right? Where you're focusing, let's say when you're preparing food, you're focused on like using your senses. I love that red in that pepper. I love the way it smells as I cut. I love the sweetness of the taste. Simple things like that. Or when I shower, that's my quiet time. But using my senses. I love the way the water falls on my head. I like the sounds.
And it's about, I'm gonna stop you on that because you said shower. And so everybody's had a long day. They can't wait for that, for that time to come. But I think Tyrone always tells me to slow it down. And I think that my mother said it best, take time to smell your roses now. So I think that it all ends up with taking time to smell your roses now and to enjoy your surrounding. We have a question here that we're going to ask because they had their hand up, very polite. And so can you see the name on that? Okay. I think it's Underwood. Okay. Do you have a question? Oh, he's not. We're going to move on. Okay. All right. So we're going to try it again. So we're going to go while we work on getting that question asked. We're going to go to our question to ask of you. What do the community outreach efforts look like as we move forward?